Welcome, Ultimate DIYers. Today we're going to fix the log. Actually, it's this one that last go around I put caulk in it to seal up the cracks, but it's already rotted. So I have a new log on the way here. And what you do on these logs in a log home, how you fix this, if it's really bad, you'll have to cut it out and go all the way in. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I hope it's not going to be that bad, because what I'll do is I'll take the log, I'll cut it to length, and then I'll figure how far I need to get it where it comes out even. This one even sets in a little from this one. This one sets in. So as long as it's close to this, we're great. But I'm going to cut it down the center, and I'll probably use my chainsaw to do that. But we're going to use a multitude of tools here just to open this up and see if we can flatten it out. So basically what I'm saying though is the leather log piece is going to be kind of like a facade. You'll put it in here. Sometimes you'll have to use a little epoxy back there to help seal it. We'll see how bad it is, and at the very least I'm going to use liquid nails to help hold it in, and then I'll drill some holes. I'll put some screws in to hold it, and then we will fill those back over with a putty. And this right here is called chinking. If you're not familiar with log homes, we use a backer rod, which is a foam type rod. We squish it in there, and then we chink it with the chinking stuff. It's almost like a caulk, but it's a little more pliable, and it has a rougher edge. We're going to put that in, and then we will repaint everything. So let's go ahead and get started. Some of the tools I've got are the multi-tool, my little portable saw, my bigger reciprocating saw, and a bunch of little chisels and hammer. And we're going to start out trying to just chisel out the softest parts and see what it looks like. And then I'll probably use multi-tool or something to try to flatten it down. This is a pretty good piece. This is about 8 feet long. So, and it does have a tapered end on the edges that I'm going to have to try to taper to get it to where it looks kind of like the one that came out. So let's go ahead and get started. Yeah, you can see the rot. It's got a lot. It's quite a ways rotted. Let me see if I can start it. Now I am using safety glasses. I don't have a mask right now because there's not a lot of dust floating around. If it starts becoming a problem, then I will go grab a mask. One of the interesting things I'm going to have to deal with is this metal flashing, because it's really going to be kind of in my way. I'll have to notch the log to get it in, or try to pull the flashing off. And I'm kind of hoping I can do the first, not the latter. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to not take out the very edge. It's pretty solid here. And if I take it out to the edges, I'm going to have to really V this and get up underneath here, and it's going to be a lot more hassle and more problem. There'll be a small line on each side, but I think that's a lot better than the rot, and it's a lot better than trying to dig this out from underneath these and get them in there. Now they're basically notched and shoved up in there, but I think I would be better off not cutting into that and just square it. So what I've done is I have pre-cut a line here with the multi-tool, and then I'm going to just use my reciprocate. Now I could go get my chainsaw and probably make pretty short work of cutting that out, but I'm trying to keep a really straight edge. So let's see how it goes. Kind of hard to start. Maybe I've started upside down. So one of the main reasons for the tarp, by the way, is not just to keep it off of the deck, but I'm out in the middle of the woods, so I can actually carry this stuff off. So I'll basically use it to put all the wood in. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of a bunch of it right now so that it'll be easier for me to work. Pick up a couple of other tools. I went in and dug out one of my drills to help drill down because I've got to get this fairly level all the way across. On an 8-foot section, that's kind of rough. I did go ahead and pick up a bigger chisel to make it a little bit. This is a floor chisel, so it's a little sharper on the end. You have brick chisels too, but they're pretty dull. This one should cut through pretty well, so it'll help me cut in and pry. And I went ahead and got some better multi-tool blades. The ones I had were a little cheaper. I just use them more in drywall and stuff. These are a little heavier duty. These will cut through nail embedded wood, copper, plastic, a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger. So we'll see how that works. But I'm going to show you, this is what I'm doing right now to kind of get down to depth. These are Forester bits, and the Forester bits tend to cut all the way, not just an outside circle. So you can take a lot of the wood out. Do now that I've chipped most of it out and got it fairly even, and there'll be some more of that once we cut the piece to go in, because I'll cut it a little big and then we'll kind of keep trimming and work it in. This area here is a little low, so I'm probably going to fill this in with some wood putty. It'll also help strengthen this, some of this little weaker wood in this spot. That's probably the weakest spot of all. And then I'm going to go ahead right now and sand it down a little to take some of the rough edges off so it'll set better. As you can see, I've got it cleaned out. I sanded it down fairly smooth. You're not going to get every one of these bumps out, but what I'm going to do is when I cut my log, and hopefully that goes well, I'm having saw problems today. I only have a little saw, which is a little pull-in saw, which is mainly made for doing limbs. It's really not made for logs. So Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. My big saw, which is a Husqvarna, the clutch assembly has frozen up on it, and so I may end up having to go get another saw. I do not want to butcher the wood that's going in here. It's very expensive. 2 of these logs are like $500, not cheap. So what I am going to do though is when I cut the log, I'm going to try to leave this section a little bit thicker so I can get them in. And because of this piece that sticks up, I don't want to pull that out. I just don't want the headache and the problem and the possibility of leaks. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to have to trim the side of the log to get it to fit correctly. But I think once it goes in and you got your chinking, which is pretty wide, it's going to be great. Now what I will do is I'll pull a measurement from the far side, my right, to my left. And over on the right, I'm at about 3.5 inches. Over here, I'm at about 3. So I'm going to make a line and use a chalk box and make a line on my log all the way down. And I'm going to try to stay under that. Now that's going to be probably pretty difficult with the saw that I'm using. So what I'll probably do is cut it much wider and then have to go back a couple of times and try to cut off the excess to get it to where I want it here. And I'll have to try to fit that a couple of times. One other thing that you'll probably want to do is I'm going to spray this with borate, which will help in case there's a fungus or anything growing in here, especially in this area here, which was the worst, even though it's very solid now. I've got a little bit of blackish right here, not much, but I'm going to spray that down. That'll help take care of any type of mold that's going back there. And then a lot of times I'll use an epoxy, but this time I'm probably going to use just a liquid nails. Not actually liquid nails. I'm going to use the Loctite version. I like it. It's stronger. If you look up your tests on them, and there's some YouTube videos on those. I don't have one yet. Need to make one, but you'll find that Loctite is stronger than liquid nails. So that's what we will probably use here. I think it's PL 390 or something like that, but I will put that here. I will actually leave a space in between each side so that I can run some chinking down it. The reason I didn't want to take it all the way to the end is this is a wall inside. I was afraid if I have to go any deeper, it could actually compromise this whole wall. I'd prefer to leave those on the sides to hold it up, put it in, and once it's painted, you're not going to notice that. It will be protected and all the rot will be gone. So I'm going to go ahead and go down and start trying to cut these logs, and I'm just telling you before I start, I already know it's going to be a nightmare. It's not going to be easy. And what I will do is put some screws in to try to hold it in parts while I'm trying to cut. I'll get some wedge blocks I'm going to have to cut on a side. I'll put some wedge blocks on the side to try to help hold it up so it doesn't fall on my bar. You don't want that happening. And it's going to be very difficult keeping a straight line because that, for one, I'm working with like a 14-inch bar, which is really too small for this 12. It doesn't have the power, so it's going to start trying to dig down. I already know. So this is our log that we're going to actually use to make our cut piece. So, and we're only going to use, this is where I'm cutting off. I've already marked it. So we're only going to use this section, but we are only going to use a few inches of it this way, and we're going to cut that after. So a couple of things. I'm on a hill, so I don't know if you can actually tell that in the video or not. So I've had to use a wedge, and I'm using my log roller to uphold this when I cut it. Okay, so that's simple. It's already cut to the length. Now I'm going to tell you a short piece, like if you're doing a small piece, and I have one about this size that I'm fixing to do. I could have shown you guys that one. It's easy. This is reality though. Most of the time you're going to end up with a long piece, and it makes it a lot more difficult. If it was just this little one, I could put a screw in it, screw it to another block, whack it off, and then go up there and practice back and forth. This is more what you're probably going to deal with. So when you see videos online and they're showing a short piece and it makes it look very simple, it's not necessarily that simple. But this I need to be my right side because it's got the smaller diameter. This one is showing the diameter of about, well, right now it's about 11.5. That one's going to be right around 12. So I need this to be my right side. Now what I will do, here's my pencil. One, this has a big check mark right here. So I'm going to try to roll it where I don't have the check mark. That's a lot better. So I want to make this my top. So I'll put a T on it. And I'm also going to put an R for right side. So I don't get up there and have it flipped upside down and not fit the way I want it. So on my right side, I'd made a note on a little scrap here. I'm looking at 3.5 inches. So what I want to do is find my center. And I know if this is 11.5, so you are going to be looking at 5.5, 5 3/4. So I'm going to be right about 5 3/4, right about there. It's going to be my halfway mark. So we're going to go up like so. So I know that this is going to be my halfway mark there. And then from there, I'm going to measure down. We know we're 3.5, so I'm going to give it a little bit of extra just to give myself some room. So instead of 3.5, we're going to go ahead and go to 4. And then I'm going to cut on the right side of the line. Okay, so basically here, try to get this as level as possible. Now you could use a level here too, which would probably help. That looks actually, yeah, I mean it's rough carpentry as long as I'm close, since we are doing it big. About like that. So that's going to be my cut line, and I've got to cut it all the way down. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So on the left side, and I'm going to make an L in top, just to kind of help me remember, make sure that I get it right. We are only 3 inches, so we're going to go 3.5. We went 4 over there. This one, 11, well, it's pretty close to the other. So we're going to go the 5 3/4 again to get my halfway mark. And by the way, if you don't know how to read a tape measure correctly, I do have a video on that if you're a beginner, which will help you kind of get a better feel for reading that tape. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my lines. I'm going to have to move this back for a second. I do have the other wedge holding. And if you're not used to how these work, the little hook, you'll put it on, and the hook through the center of this looks kind of like an arrow. Your line needs to be at the center of that arrow. Hook it, pull it, keep it snug, get it to the other side, use a thumb and lock it on your other side of your line, and then pop the center. Or in my case, I'll pop from my side. I work alone, so I've gotten pretty used to doing this by myself. So my sides are right here, and split the arrow. Keep it off of the piece of material and but keep it taut. Pull it down. Do not let it touch until you get right to where your line is, like so. And then you pull straight up, not hard, not to the left, not to the right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my chainsaw, lay it on its side, watching both areas, and try to slowly cut my way across. Probably be very tedious. That chainsaw seems to be struggling just a little. So one thing I'm going to go ahead and do though is kind of follow my line with the pencil, because the chalk with that chainsaw throwing everything and blowing air is going to probably blow my lines away. unfortunately, the little Poland saw is just not strong enough. This is great for trimming limbs and things around the house, small stuff, but it's really not designed for what I'm trying to do. This is my original Husqvarna 455 Rancher, which has been a great saw. I've owned it for probably 6-7 years. I just put the new blade on it. Works great, but this is where I have problems. This is your whole clutch mechanism and adjuster. And the clutch comes off of the top and feeds down, and it locks the little drum that the spindle goes on, that your chain's on. So when it's running, it starts up and runs fine, but it will not turn the chain because that's damaged. I'm going to have to order a new one. Found the part. They actually have it on Amazon for about 80-85 bucks. So I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and it's also a Saturday, which makes it harder, and I've got to get this job done. So I had to go find another saw. I went and I looked at Stihl because I've always heard Stihl is a good brand. I've never personally owned one, but I know a lot of guys who watch my videos, especially the tree cutting ones, use Stihl. So I wanted to buy a Stihl. The one I was looking at was like $700. This one is $529. So it's a little more expensive, but it was a really nice saw. Same size bar. It was a 20-inch. Actually, I have it in the truck which one it was, but the guy it was at an Ace Hardware. They were the dealer here local out in the middle of nowhere, and they have a policy. They have to start it up for you. Well, he tried to start it and pulled and pulled and pulled for 20 minutes, put fuel in it, did everything, couldn't get it to start. I even pulled on to some, couldn't get it to start. To me, it felt like it wasn't getting fire. Had plenty of fuel in it. So ultimately, he was going to take it back and look at it. It was the only one they had in stock of that brand, that size, which is what I wanted. And so he was going to work on it. I was going to come back and look at it. Well, in the meantime, I went to Tractor Supply, and I probably could have got this saw a little cheaper through Amazon or something like that. I just don't have the time to wait. So, time is money when you're out here. This isn't just a hobby for me. It's something I'm doing to get paid. So I ended up buying another Rancher 455, the identical twin to the one I have. So I'll get this one fixed. I'll end up with two of them, and I'll be able to carry one back and forth when I come up here and work. There's a lot of tree trimming and things that need to be done here. There's going to be other logs, I'm sure, over time that's going to need to be done. And I'm probably going to be working on a railing system, so a chainsaw would be a lot easier to deal with on the big rails. So I'll get a lot of use out of the chainsaw. I filled up the oil. Oil's going to be in the front up by the chain. Your gas goes in the back. It's a 50-to-1 mixture. And I went ahead and put a little oil on the chain just in case it needs to be primed, since it's straight from the factory and brand new. This one does have a prime, by the way, here, which you want to push, make sure it's compressed. That one's already compressed. And I did check the chain tension. They have it set right. You're going to usually pump the little primer here about 6 times. And I can see the fluid is in it now. That's perfect. And then you pull out, you have a choke here. You're going to pull that choke out like so. Just like that. And let's see what happens when we go to start it. Leave the choke out just a little, let it warm up, and then setting up here, and if you remember, I marked it left and right, so this is an L, which means I've got to flip it. But I wanted to turn it on so you guys can see firsthand how it kind of looks. Now I can already tell you it's way big. I already knew it was going to be way big, but I just wanted to kind of get a fit for it before I started cutting on it. And it may not only be big width-wise, but this wide as well, I can already tell. So I'm probably going to have to do some trimming here, and also I'm going to do some marks to try to help me make it a little bit easier, make sure I don't cut too much. Like I said, it's probably better to make multiple cuts than to try and do it all at one time. So I'm going to flip this around, and we're going to see just how far off it actually is. And one of the good things about it being thicker through here is that's where this spot is. So that could be a big benefit. So lining her up. And right there. So, yeah, so if I cut, you can see how far off the line. And this line is actually about a ½ inch further up because I wanted to give myself room. So if you cut that back, this is actually going to roll in. It's pretty close on this side. So what I'm going to do first is try to cut my line back and see where we're at, and then see how far out it sticks from the edges. Actually, I think I'm going to try the little one for just doing the trimming. Maybe easier than the large bar. Okay guys, it's been an extremely frustrating day, and you probably watch a lot of videos where everything shows nice and smooth and it's great, but this is reality. Reality is the little saw that I had to pull in is made more for pulling, however you want to say, is made more for limbs and small things. Not really made for what I'm trying to do, and it was never meant to be used today for that. The other saw, the Rancher, I had problems with. First of all, this saw's never seemed like it had enough power. I've had 2 of these. I didn't really want to try to buy another one of these. I wanted to go ahead and buy something different because I've had issues. Now I'm probably going to just sell this saw as is and get rid of it. And I'm going to try what everybody keeps telling me in the comments, that the Stihl saw is better. So I bought a MS 251, ran about the same price. It's an 18-inch bar instead of a 20, but for what I do, that's probably going to be plenty. This is called, I believe, somewhere on here, it's called the Wood Boss. The Wood Boss MS 251. They do have a version of this, a step up, which has an automatic chain tensioner, which as little as I use it, I didn't think it was really worth the difference. So basically I ended up spending the same price, and we're going to see how this works, because that was a friggin' nightmare, drove me nuts. Chopped my wood up really good. You can see the edges. It was just awful. A big struggle. So we're going to try to clean it up with this, and I'm going to test it and see how it works. So what I'm going to do is kind of, and by the way, they started this for me at the shop to make sure that I know how to start it correctly. It works a little different. You just push it down into your start mode. When it acts like it wants to start, you move it up a click, get it started, get it warm, and then you move it to the regular throttle, which is going to be the second from the top. All the way to the top is a stop key. And you probably can't see all that, but just to give you an idea, that's how it works. This one does not have the push button on it, which gives gas to the carburetor. And the gas treatment 50-to-1 goes in here, and your oil goes in the front, and it comes with the guard. So let's see, just take a look and see how this looks. Yep, they've got it tight correctly. Okay, so let's see what she does. I've got the log in. I'm a little bit proud over on this side, so I'm going to use the hand planer, but it is so late today, it's going to have to happen tomorrow, so I'll show you guys that. But everything else is actually fitting really well. I'll be able to put my backer rod in and then use my chinking and get it chinked, get everything cleaned up, and get it ready for paint. I've got one end over there that was rotted that kind of went into the part that notches into the house. I will have to build that up with a little bit of wood putty. But other than that, it's great. I left these pieces high in here so it filled in that spot that was deep. So it actually is very snug. I will put a couple of screws in it too and then fill over the top of that. Since it's going to be a solid color, you're not going to see that. But it should look really nice when it's done, and now it's protected. Okay, guys, I went ahead and saved you the trouble of watching me mix another batch. Mix this batch a little bit thicker to fill in this hole. Now, it may take a couple, but like I said, I did thick. We'll see what it does. I think we may be okay. And I mixed some extra just so I can hit a little bit more, some low spots. And by the way, guys, I did do some digging, checking inside. Thank God we caught this when we did, because it, on the other side of this is not a normal wall. It is a full-size fireplace blocking this view. So I would have had to, if I had to take the log out, everything would have had to been done from out here, which could have been a total nightmare. Let's see. Could be done, but it would not have been fun. Hey, that kind of rhymes. It would be done, but it would not be fun. Okay. So, a little label. So I'm probably going to have to go and do a touch-up on this one because it's a lot of, probably more than you should do in one. But I'm going to try to get it as close as we can, so that I can just come back and do a touch-up. Even mixing it thicker, it's trying to kind of run down. There we go. So I'm going to leave that like she sets, let it harden, and then I can come back and add a little more after I sand it and get it smooth, because that's probably going to crack a little bit, normally does, and you got to go over it again. That's really more than I would usually do. Okay, guys, it's all dry. I've got this prepped and ready. Now, before you start trashing me online about the humps are there on purpose. Like this hump is right here because it's actually indented. Yeah, this one actually has, it's a little proud, so I made this a little bit indented this direction. And this over here obviously is very high on this because that's low. So I did all that on purpose, knowing that I had that problem, so I'm trying to make it set as flush as possible. When you have a long piece like this, it gets really difficult to make it totally flat all the way across. Now, we're going to anchor this two ways. One, we're going to use the PL Premium, which is a Loctite product. I like this a lot better than I do the liquid nails I pointed out before. And how you do this is you're going to clip it with a pretty big opening. Usually I use a razor knife, but that works pretty well because I don't really need a sharp point on this one. I will take the little puncture deal, and you'll do it several times because this stuff is hard to move and get out. Put it on and just have it ready to roll. Now I've got my drill gun ready, and I'm going to use 4-inch outdoor trim nails, or not nails, screws. They're star bits, and these are made with a lifetime guarantee. They're supposed to be very good, but the reason I got them mainly is because they're a deck type screw, but they have the trim head, the small head, so I won't have to fill in a lot with caulk. Now I also have a drill to try to pre-drill a little bit so that I don't crack the wood. This wood does crack fairly easy. So first thing we're going to do is start applying our bead. And I have 2 tubes of this. For this section, should be plenty. Now you can go in straight lines since this is a long one. Okay guys, I got glue on it. Now I will tell you that was painful. I have a big, for the big tubes, I have the big gun. I use that when I do flooring a lot. I should have brought that with me, but I didn't. So lesson learned, I won't do that again because that was extremely difficult. So I put it on both sides, trying to hit all my highs on both pieces, making sure that it'll make contact. So I'm going to set it up into place. And what I'm looking for is making sure I keep my reveal or my gap on each side so that I can put in my chinking. It's good there. Actually, that looks pretty good all the way around. Pretty even. Push it in. So now what I'm going to do is pre-drill. Let's see if we can get a screw started. There we go. Good. Try to put in the permachink now. I do have a little head to still take off, but I sanded this down where they're even and tapered it so that they kind of blend. This one even has a flat spot on the log here, so I tried to match that. Sorry, dust getting to me a little bit. So now this is the permachink. Uses the big gun, which ultimately I did have a big gun, but I didn't have the big tubes anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. I cut it off at a pretty big opening. I want a lot to be able to go in here. Chinking. Now you see these big gaps here. You don't want to use the chink stuff. It's very expensive, so you don't want to waste it. Plus, you also want to have a really good barrier, air barrier. So you use what's called backer rod. This is the big piece of it. They've got all different sizes. If you go to the big box store, they usually sell it in the door and trim department, and it's in bags. Ace Hardware here at local, since they have so many log homes, they sell it. They have big reels of it, and you buy it by the foot. So you're going to take this though and try to fill in these spots, and you want to push back in there because you don't want it to protrude through your chinking. You want the chinking to be the only thing that you see. brought backer rod in, ready to go, pushed in, so it's out of our way. You have to have a spray bottle of just clear water, no alcohol mix on this one. My gun is already cut. I've got the opening cut, and the top is cut off the inside, ready to go. And have my applicator. My applicator today will be my finger, and I'll just have to make it copy this. They do have Stihl applicators and plastic applicators, but I only have a small, this one, and a little piece left to do, so we are not going to mess with trying to get the other right now. So you'll take the tube, and we start applying. This is a tanned color that we're painting. And you have to have a pretty generous amount of this stuff on here. It's part of the reason for using our backer. At this point, you take your water and you fine spray, and then mist it. And you could definitely feel the sandy grout in this stuff.